Hey, what's up? I'm Jeff here, and today's video I'm going to share to you my knowledge and my experiences on how to rewind a 16-slot single-phase motor or simply your fan at home. Just to let you know, this video is too long. That is why I divided it into parts so you can jump right ahead on the topic that you wanted to learn. But before we proceed, make sure that you hit the subscribe button with notification bell on if you are also interested with contents like this and for to get notified whenever I upload my videos. Without any further ado, let's begin. So here's the motor that we are going to fix, a Strong stand fan, 230 volts AC with a power of 40 watts. I started with replacing the gearbox, for I noticed that it was broken. I replaced it with my available one just to save some money and time. Obviously, it doesn't have the part where I can attach the speed selector or the switch, but I'll try to maneuver it later on this video. Now I proceed on thinning the stator in order to easily remove those coils from the slots. Some of you might be confused on knowing how many turns do you need for each coil. So I added indicators to determine which coil has more turns when I count them. "13" for slot number 13 and 12 for slot number 12, and additional marks for an additional guide. Now let's proceed on knowing the AWG of our wires. AWG stands for American Wire Gauge, a unit we use to determine the thickness of our wires. Sometimes, using wire gauge does not give you an accurate measurements. So, comparing it with the store samples are highly recommended. Unfortunately, they're lacking samples, which makes it harder for me to decide. So I have to use my intuition in this case, hoping that it would give me the right decision. AWG number 36 for running winding, while number 37 for starting. The dimension of your rewinder should also be the same with the dimension of your original coils. For my number of turns, I decided to find the average or mean on each winding. For smaller motors like in fan, you can use mylar film number 7.
Make sure that it fits perfectly to avoid contact between magnetic wires and metal sheets, and also to avoid electric shock when operating. Before you start to rewind, make sure to indicate your starting tip by putting tape with markings around it, because it is one of the main factors to be used to determine the direction of rotation for your fan blades. Now let's move on to our main content, which is rewinding. We begin with the running winding or the main winding. After the third coil, I realized that my magnetic wire won't make it through to finish the fourth one. So I added 30 grams for the last coil of my running winding. Now we move on with our starting winding, also known as auxiliary winding. Using all the marks we have, we can now determine if our coil is in clockwise or counterclockwise direction. Things that also determines the polarity of our coil. In counterclockwise, the starting tip are found at the right side of the coil. And for clockwise, the starting tip are found at the left side of the coil. I apologize for removing the numbers. I thought that it wouldn't be necessary at this point, but it turns out that it is. But don't worry, I'll bring it back later when we start inserting the fifth coil. We can just use the top mark for now as a guide. This will be our diagram for this fan. Here's the running winding. Here's the starting winding. Our switch or speed selector, the thermal fuse, our fans data, the insertion sequence, then the stator's data, the legends, our capacitor, which is connected to the stator's end, starting tip, and to the thermal fuse. For slot number 4 and 1 is the first coil, and in counterclockwise, the one with the end tip reserved for the capacitor.
Friday's newspaper. Well, it's not as far-fetched as it may seem. In fact, both local San Francisco papers are investing a lot of money to try and get a service just like that started. Science editor Steve Newman reports on one person already using the brand new system.
We're done with our first coil. Now we proceed with the second one, in clockwise for slot number 16 and 13. The third coil in counterclockwise and for slot number 12 and 9. Now the fourth coil in clockwise for slot number 5 and 8. Remember that the current flow dominantly starts from the auxiliary or starting winding before it ends to the main or running winding. Inserting these coils are confusing sometimes, so make sure to double check your work. From this point of view, if you inserted the first coil in a counterclockwise direction, then the second coil should be positioned in a clockwise direction. Third in counterclockwise. And the fourth one should be in clockwise. It doesn't matter if you started inserting the first coil in clockwise or counterclockwise direction. What does matter is that you inserted the next following coils in alternating direction of turns and in backward sequence, in order to produce clockwise rotation of your fan blades, thus making the air blow towards you. But if you're rewinding either exhaust fan or box fan, then the insertion sequence should be in a forward direction. This is because in exhaust fan, the fan blades aren't designed to blow but to suck the air around it. While for box fan, the motor are placed facing at the back with blades designed for blowing air. Because of that, you have to make the rotor spin in counterclockwise direction. And the only proper way to do it for these types of fan is to insert the following coils forward instead of backwards. Now I bring back the numbers, then I remove the top mark. Now that we're done with the running winding, let's move on to starting. We start with the fifth coil, of course, in counterclockwise. And as you can see, other coils are also to be inserted in a backward sequence. From the starting tip of our running, which will be connected to the end tip of our next coil. To clear things up in my case here, my fifth coil should be inserted in slot number 6 and slot number 3. Next is the 6th coil in clockwise for slot number 2 and slot number 15. Seventh coil in counterclockwise in 14 and 11. Finally, for slot number 10 and 7 for the last coil and in clockwise direction. Make sure that they are properly inserted and locked with the film to once again avoid possible ground or even worse, electric shock. Now let's try to check if we didn't damage the wires during the insertion process. In order to get the resistance for the entire stator, I connected the first coil to the second one first, and then the fourth coil to the fifth one.